stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, roll call, please.
Sure. Commissioner Schlangen? Here. Commissioner Heinen?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Kapinski?
Here.
Commissioner Pop?
Here. All right, move on to approval or amendments to our agenda. Monty?
Mr. Chair, we have no additions, but Sheriff Heck would like to move the Citizens Life Saving Award item to directly after the consent agenda, if we could, please.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move, Mr. Chair, for the adoption with the amendment.
Okay. Second. Motion is second to approve our amended agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. County board meetings are broadcasted live and video recorded on YouTube. Please refrain from speaking from the audience area and come to the podium so that viewers can hear you. County board observes Robert's Rules of Order for its meetings, so please obtain the board chair's consent before addressing the county board. Public comments are generally reserved for the open forum segment or public hearings. However, public comment on other agenda items may be allowed at the discretion of the board chair. As we begin today, please turn off all your cell phones or put them on vibrate. Thank you. Is there anyone here for open forum? Beth, do we know? All right, thank you. All right, move on to the consent agenda. We have items 1 through 12. What are your wishes?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, motion is second to approve consent agenda items 1 through 12 as presented. Any other discussion on those items? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, they carry. All right, move on to Monty, excuse me, Sheriff Heck.
Sheriff Heck.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning.
Today it's my great honor to provide a life-saving award to a citizen. The reason for this award is that back on July 13th of 2022, Nick Lanners, who is here with us today, had his life altered forever. On that day, he was driving southbound, like many other days I would imagine, on 15th Avenue Northeast when he stopped for the stop sign at Little Rock Road Northeast. Unfortunately, another driver who was not doing his due regard for care and safety when operating a motor vehicle wasn't paying enough attention and slammed into the back of Nick's vehicle. This caused a catastrophic collision, which pushed Nick's vehicle into the east ditch of the roadway, ruptured the fuel tank, and left Nick with neck pain, difficulty breathing, and the inability to feel his extremities. Fortunately for Nick, registered nurse Donald Hall happened to also be in the area. And today we celebrate the efforts of Mr. Hall and what he did to ensure that, to the extent possible, Nick's life was preserved and his ability to feel and move was also preserved. Having found this accident, Donald sprung into action, stabilized Nick's cervical spine, got his airway open, and did everything he could to ensure that the best chance for Nick to survive and to recover fully. Now, I don't know a lot about the healthcare industry, but as a person that observes it from the outside, I imagine it's also similar to law enforcement in that many times you exert your best effort and sometimes you don't get the result that you're hoping for. But in those times that we do exert effort and we have a positive outcome, I think that should justly be celebrated. So today we're here to celebrate the efforts of Mr. Hall and what he did to save and preserve Nick's life. So with that, Mr. Hall, if you want to come on up here. I have for you a Citizens Life Saving Award, and we also have for you a lapel pin that we give to law enforcement when they get a life-saving award. So that is for you as well, and we hope that you'll wear that with pride, and we sincerely appreciate everything you did for Nick and everything you do for the community as a registered nurse. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Donald and Lanner's family for being here today. We're honored to be able to celebrate this achievement from Donald for you. Best of luck to your family. Thank you.
Thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
And you're certainly free to leave if you'd like, or you're certainly free to stay with us the next few hours, I'm afraid.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
What else you can do? Oh, yeah, saw it.
No.
No. All right, Monty, would you like me to hand this right off to Steve, or are you gonna take care of this?
Hand it off to Steve.
All right. Steve, come on up and,
Might have to put your laptop down.
Morning, Commissioners.
good morning.
Morning.
Wasn't expecting on speaking today, but let's see if we can pull something together.
You'll do just fine.
Yeah, we're here, John Bursky, who's been with the county and the IT department over in the sheriff's side of the road. Retiring, what do we have, John, 19 years?
18 and a half.
18 and a half years. So we're here to celebrate that and the recognition piece.
Great.
So we have the board chair perhaps,
Sure.
and John for a photo. The presentation of the retirement clock. Beth will do the honors.
You wish me to be.
You come on up here with me, John. I'm gonna for sure stand here because I'm a little shorter than you. John, congratulations.
And you're still shorter.
Appreciate it. Gift card for you. Thank you for your years of service in Benton County. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank
Thanks,
you.
John. Cross.
All right, Monty, we'll move on. Cross Center
Are there
presentation.
folks here from Cross Center?
Yes.
Please come forward to the
Please
podium.
come on up.
That'd be
yeah.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There you go.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome.
For letting me be here.
Of course.
I am Jennifer, and I am the new director at the Cross Center. I've been there just over a year now, and very honored to be part of the Benton County area services here in Foley. At the Cross Center, we have food and clothing both for those in need. Everything is free. Our hours are Monday 1 to 4 and 6 to 8, and again Thursdays from 10 to 3. The Cross Center has been open since 1982, and the mission is to provide an encouragement and assist residents of Benton County who are experiencing short-term difficulties in meeting their basic needs for food and clothing both. Assistance is provided regardless of the race, the color, or the creed of these who for those who qualify. The Cross of Benton County serves all low-income persons living in Benton County, including people with disabilities, to the best of our ability. The services that we provide is food, of course. We also have clothing and household items. In the fall, we have school supplies for all students in the Benton County Foley School District. We have started a kids club, which provides a backpack or a bag that has 5 easy meals, 5 snacks, and beverages for each student. And then we have special holiday foods that we give out. And then, of course, we have friendly support and information available to those in Benton County as well. Those that have the copy, there's just some pictures of the food shelf and our wonderful volunteers that we have, giving out some food and just showing their pride of being part of the Cross Center. Ways that people can help is, of course, volunteering. The Cross Center wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for volunteers. Prior to me starting last May, it was 100% volunteer. Now I am a part-time paid employee, but everybody else is 100% volunteer. So without the volunteers, the Cross Center would not be where it is today. So I want to thank all those who volunteer for us. Other ways that you can help the Cross Center is, of course, financial donations. We do March Madness, which we can get matched for any donations that we receive. I just got an email yesterday about a competition that's going to happen in July for, again, kind of like a match of donations. And then we have another program in November that we can get kind of matched on our donations. So March and April and November are a huge importance to donations at that time. Of course, like I talked about, the March Madness is you know, a very big Minnesota-wide program for food shelves, and they match dollars and pound of food. So the school and many other businesses have supported us a lot during that time. So again, thank you to the Benton County businesses and to the school, of course, too. Another reason I'm here today is the increase of the need. And I'm sure many of you know that, you know, people are in need at this time. And with that said, we've had some major increases in our expenses. One would be, of course, phone and internet, which unfortunately went up 217% because of the internet service that we have to now have for our facilities. The post office box went up, so that's 20%. Our water bill has went up 22%. We have 2 actual buildings, so then we have 2 separate water bills. So we would love Benton County to be able to combine and only have 1 water bill, but we're still working on that. And then our garbage bill went up 4%. But I would really like people to know that even we get most of our food from Second Harvest, and with that, even in the increase of food, our increase of food has went up 96% just in the last year. Also thanks to Colburn's. Colburn's is wonderful at giving us their rescue food. So again, a big community thank you to Colburn's for all that they do for the Cross Center as well. And lastly, I just want to just note that since January, we've had 701 visits. That's just families. And then we have served 2,101 members, and with a poundage of 66,447 pounds of food has went out just this year. So as you can see, the numbers are really increasing as far as the need. Because when I first started last May, we did probably 8 to 12 families in a day. Now we're doing about 30 to 42 families in one visit. So, we at the Cross Center just want to thank everybody in Benton County that supports this wonderful program. It's sad to me to see the increase, but I am joyful that the community supports as much as they do, and that we are able to provide 66,000 pounds of food to those in need in just 6 months. So that's pretty exciting. So thank you to everyone here in Benton County. And I hope that everybody continues to support as much as they have.
All right, thank you. Anything?
Thank you.
No? Comments? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Thank you.
day.
Yep, thank
I
you.
do have some brochures if anybody that has the hours on it. So if anybody knows somebody that's in need, I laid some on the back table too. If you could pass them out and let them know that we're there for them.
Great.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good day.
as well.
All right, we're gonna move on to Human Resources recap of the HR-related 23 legislative changes. Joanne?
Good morning, let me.
Good
get
morning.
this pulled.
Just smile.
Joan? Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Chair.
Good morning.
I pulled something together because I think you've heard, I know Matt was here 2 weeks ago and talked a lot about legislation changes and kind of gave you guys a little prelude that I would be talking to you guys today more about, the people side of what some of the things that the legislation did change. I tried to keep it pretty high level. I'm gonna try to go through it kind of fast, so if you need more information, please let me know. A lot of that is because some of this, especially with, paid FMLA, those things, we're still figuring some of it out. Okay. So some of the first screens is just so effective January 1st, 2026. So this is the one that's the furthest out of the changes. It is a paid family medical leave program. It creates a state administrated paid family leave insurance program. They're going to mirror it a lot like our current unemployment program that we have. Employees are going to be submitting documentation directly to the state, not to the employer. As of right now, it is a 0.7% shared expense between employers and employees. When talking, with our different MICA groups and such, it has been talked about that as of right now, it would be a 50-50 split between the employees and the employers, but in the public sector, it would be a subject of collective bargaining. Okay, and right now they are through different studies and using other state that have these programs. That's where they come up with a 0.7%, but it will be looked at on an annual basis and probably will change. So the family portion of the new paid family medical leave, it offers up to 12 weeks, and it's a partially paid program. But they did really broaden the definition from what we currently have under our federal program of what family means. I kind of listed some things on here, nieces, nephews, aunts, uncles, in-laws, foster child, foster grandchild, legal guardians. Really the relationship is very, very broad of who they may take time off for their medical needs. The program also will offer 12 weeks for an individual for their own medical conditions. I did make a note on here that they did give an example. We asked a lot about, well, is it 12 weeks and 12 weeks, total of 24? There is a maximum benefit currently for 20 weeks of combined use. Some other note items, serious health conditions is, it has to have a period of incapacity of 7 full days. Our current federal program is more than 3 days missed, does not need to be consecutive. This needs to be consecutive and more than 7 days. It's not a full wage replacement, so it's a percentage of their taxable income, but it's also kind of on a sliding fee scale, a lot like, again, our unemployment insurance is right now. There is some maximums that could be hit. We cannot require the use of any accrued leaves or supplemental benefits while employees are out on this state-paid FMLA. Employers, we must maintain their health insurance while they were out and continue our contributions while they were out on this leave. We do have some additional quarterly reporting that we'll be required to do. And para is not going to be considering this time that they're out as earned wages. But the employees would be able to buy back like they can now if they're out on a unpaid leave. Before I move on to the next one, are there any initial questions on the paid FMLA program? We don't have a lot of information on that, but I can try.
Mr. Chair, quick question on the health insurance. The employee still has to pay their portion, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It would continue as in they were actively
Okay.
working. Mhm. Any others? Okay. So we'll just move straight on to the next. So the effective date of the Earned Sick and Safe Time, or ESST, you may hear it be called, that is effective January 1st of next year of 2024. So this leave requires paid time for the employee's health or care of a family member, absence due to domestic abuse, sexual assault, stalking, seeking advice for legal reasons, closure of employee's business due to weather or other public emergencies, inability to telework due to health concerns or awaiting test results, and then determined presence of the employee or their family of different types of exposures of communicable diseases. This is a very much broadened expand of what we currently have with our state's earned and our sick and safe time law. This includes all employees, including any of our temporary workers that we have. That'll be another big change for us. As of right now, our intermittents, temporaries, seasonal employees are not covered by or under our Benton County personnel policies, so they do not have any earned time off or paid time off. So we will be working on, and more information to come on what we want to present to you guys as a collective on how we want to move forward with sick or PTO for these new groups of employees that will be eligible. Accruals and carryovers. So employees can accrue 1 hour for every 30 hours worked, up to 48 hours in a year. And they're allowed to carry it over for 48 hours of that from 1 year to the next year if they don't use it. But that would be the max. If they don't use it the following year, it's just the 48 hours that they can continue to roll over. And the new law is going to, so for the that's why I mentioned the biggest change for us would be the seasonals and the intermittents and our temporary positions. Right now, all of our current policies that we have for sick and vacation or PTO is more and up and above what the minimum floor is for the state with this. So the only thing that I can see so far that we might need to update is some of the reasons for sick leave usage with this. So our regular, employees that we have, our current policies would cover any of these new changes. So the biggest change moving forward will be coming up with our policies for our temporaries, intermittents, and seasonals for earning the up to 48 hours if they work for every 30 hours that they work. Again, it provides a listing of the reasons for the leave. I also put on here the different definitions, and it's basically the same definitions as the family paid medical leave reasons, the expansion, which will be easier to administer going forward. At least it'll be the same for both reasons. Employee inquiries are what we can ask them. Will be updating or changed a little bit. We cannot ask for the earned sick and safe time. So for 48 hours of the time an employee would use, we cannot ask the reasons why unless we are suspecting some sort of abuse of the program. And we cannot require medical documentation if they use less than three or more less than consecutive days. So those are some of the different things. Our current sick policy allows us to ask after 3 days. So I said again, most of our policies are covering this new changes. Separated employees, if they're rehired within 180 days, they would be able to have their leave balances reinstated. It's another thing that we're going to have to work through. Any questions so far with the EEST, the Earned Sick and Safe Time?
Mr. Chair. So with everything being reinstated after 180 days, what happens if they're paid out?
That is some of the questions that we will have to work out. I don't know if it'll be a buyback program or what it is if they're being paid out, because our policies allow payout. State policy doesn't allow payout, so it's some of those things we're gonna have to work out. It's definitely on my radar.
Okay, seems like a slippery slope there.
Sure does. Go ahead, Johanna.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of instances where some, people would be rehired within 180 days that had payouts, but it's definitely something we'll have to be aware of.
Okay.
Whoops. Under the SF 33035, the omnibus bill, it's the big bill that everyone's been talking about. I tried to go through and just identify some of the big updates that would affect from an HR or people stance. So a lot of them are PELRA updates. The first one would be staffing ratios. I'm sure you've probably heard a little bit about this already. There's been a lot of talk about it. That staffing ratios has become a term and condition of bargaining. It takes away the ability of the government jurisdictions to determine the number of personnel as an inherent management right. It changes that to be a prohibited subject of bargaining, a permissive subject. Again, we must meet and negotiate the process. So if it were to come up, basically we wouldn't be able to say it's an inherent management right anymore during those negotiation processes. The other thing that's come up is, they're funding the PERB board again. It's been in existence for years and years, but it wasn't funded. They are going to be funding that board again. They also within that clarified of what information would be public, and a big change from our side would be any evidence admitted to the board would then be considered from a data practices side public documentation. Excuse me. So union access to employee data was another big change. It'll be a heavy administration load trying to kind of work through some of this. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of. So private data on individuals such as personal phone numbers, email addresses, birth date, home address could be subject to giving to the union upon request. But there are also information there's separate lists that we will have to submit Excel reports to the union within 20 days of any hire or leaver, anybody leaving the union or employment. And then we must do a complete employee roster there's a long list of information we must supply every 120 days to each of our unions. We also are going to be required to give 30 minutes within 30 days to the exclusive rep for orientation of all comers, new employees. Currently, that is not a process of ours. So we'll be working through that. At this point, from the information that we have, it is only the exclusive rep, though, that we have to allow the 30 minutes for every new hire for them to meet with. And then we're going to need to also give them access to our email systems. So we are working on that and what does that actually mean, and working with IT to make sure that we can have that done. Our para vesting, I think on a positive side from recruitment, this is a good piece that I have. The good news would be effective January 1st, 2024, our coordinated plan is reducing from 5 years to 3 years to be fully vested. I do plan on adding that to my recruitment and some of the different information that we send out, trying to educate people on, what is para, what is a retirement pension. Our police and fire plan reduced from 20 years to 10 years, effective on January 1st, 2024 also. Small little quick, so the Crown Act was put in, it's adding hair texture and style to the definition of race under their protected classes. So I will be updating a few policies and such on that. The salary cap was repealed, that was actually effective on May 24th, 2023. Which it just repeals the compensation limit on any of the local government officials. And then legalization of cannabis, it's chapter 23, which is a huge chapter in our legislation. Still going through a lot of that. That is effective August 1st, 2023. And I will be working with, you know, the different channels that I have to look at our policies and see what we need to do to make sure that we're being compliant with that.
Well, thanks for all the great news.
I know, I feel that it's just, I try to keep a smile on my face, but yeah, unfortunately, some of this is going to have some ramifications, workload-wise and, you know, dollars-wise, so.
Joanna, maybe speak for the rest of the board, but could you please forward out your presentation to us so we can see that again?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other
Any
questions or
questions?
comments?
Comments?
No, overwhelmed.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, move on to Property Management Director Jeff Dingman. Update on the replacement of skylights at the sheriff's office.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Jeff.
Yeah, I'll try to make this a little short, but, what we're looking at doing is, well, when we were doing the, prep work for the roof replacement over there in the sheriff's office last fall, we had noticed, a sufficient amount of damage to the skylights over there. There's 8 skylights, they're called ridge caps on the, jail side, and then there's 2 over records that are pyramid shaped. I had the original installer who installed them back in '95 come out and look at them, and they gave us an estimate of $95,161 to replace the skylights. Due to the timing, I wasn't able to get the MCIT out with their adjuster to come out till this spring to come out and check it out and see if they were willing to cover them at all. The good news is they're willing to cover them. The downside is we got 2 years from the date of the storm, which was May 12th of last year. So we got until May 12th of '24 to get them replaced and submitted to the insurance company for reimbursement. They have cut us a check for a little over $16,000 to start with, and then the other $76,000 and change would be paid out on the completion of the work.
All right, any questions for Jeff?
Mr. Chair. And there's no problem getting them installed by May of 2025?
No, I talked to the installer and they said they should be able to, get everything ordered. And with delays, I'm kinda surprised with that,
Yeah.
they said they're able to get them in. They said they can install them all winter long. I'd say I'd rather not do that if possible. I'd rather get them done this fall. And, cause nothing seems to work as well when you're out there in sub-zero.
And sometimes the results ain't as good neither.
Absolutely.
What do you wishes? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the contract with WL Hall for the replacement of the skylights at the sheriff's office. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
Jeff, how are we doing with the tree cutting?
With the tree cutting?
Is it done for the season?
Yep, trees are all cut down, removed that were coming out of there. There's a lot of cleanup and stuff that needs to get done yet. On the, park board meeting on the 26th, we're gonna be meeting with, a group called, Great River Greening, sorry. And, they'll be looking at, they got us some grant options as far as, roughly $100,000 worth of grant money to, as long as we follow their guidelines on getting it cleaned up and getting it reseeded and stuff. So we're still exploring those options and hopefully we'll have a contract ready for you guys, eventually on that.
This would include the stump removal too?
Correct. It's kind of up in the air yet if the stumps are gonna have to be completely removed or if we
Ground
can
up.
get by with grinding them down 3 to 4 inches below ground and then they can just till over the top without having to, plow. So hopefully they do that maybe. So there's still options out there as far as, which way to go.
Mr. Chair?
Great, Commissioner Pop?
Do you have any idea how many cords they took out of there?
I haven't got the exact numbers yet. I know originally they were looking at 750, and I know it was over that. So I believe that, I'd hate to speculate on the amount, but I know it's more than what we're looking at, so.
Do you know, have we received our check from, for the buying of the wood? Trying to remember who that was for. Haven't seen anything yet, okay.
Yeah, last I talked to Bob
Yeah,
Perleyberg, the
that was
forester,
ours.
last week, and he was still finishing up with going through. Because up until last week, they didn't even have all the logs pulled out of there.
Sure.
So they're all out now, so he's going through the tickets and
That
through
would
the
be-
mill to make sure that that all matches up, and then they'll get us a check.
Yeah, he's the one that'll take care of that, right?
Correct,
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
yeah, and he'll cut us a check, and then we have to pay him back then for his portion of that.
Sure. Any other questions for Jeff? All right, thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna turn our meeting over to the Human Services Board Chair, Commissioner Heinen.
Thank you. We'll call to order the Human Services Board. Approve or amend the agenda. Sandy, you have anything to add?
I do not.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented, Mr. Chair.
second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Consent agenda item 1, approve or amend the Human Services Board meeting minutes. of
Move
June 6th.
approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Sandy, you have anything for us?
I do not. Do you have anything for me?
Do we have anything for Sandy?
No. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll adjourn, that's all right, Mr. Chair. At this time, we'll adjourn the Human Services Board at 9:36, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Heinen. All right, we'll move back into our regular board meeting. Our next item, consider the updated amendment to Summit Foods contract for food services in the county jail. Sheriff Heck.
Good morning again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, as we all are painfully aware every time we go to the grocery store, and was mentioned in the Cross Center presentation today, food is expensive. Back in September, you'll recall that we entered into an updated agreement with Summit Foods for what we believed would be the prices we'd be paying for jail food in 2023. And in that agreement, the prices were going up 8.2%. So after the first quarter of 2023 went by, Summit Foods approached us and informed us that they were, due to unexpected inflationary costs in both the food and the labor, they were losing money providing food for us at the contract that we currently have with them. They approached us with a suggested increase to cover the food for 2023. When we got that suggested increase, we solicited input from other vendors to see, well, what would it cost for somebody else to come in and do this service for us, since the increase is substantial, and we wanted to make sure that what they were asking for is actually in the ballpark of what somebody else would do the job for. In comparing those other competitive bids, we found that there was a slight variance in a couple of their tiers with what their competitors were asking. We went back to Summit Foods and asked them to match those prices, and they agreed to that. So what you have before you is an increase that calls for an average of 13.4% additional across all tiers, with individual tiers ranging with increases between 0 and 25.5%, which, again, it's a bit of sticker shock. But our alternative, from what I can see, is to go to a different vendor who's going to charge us that anyway. We've had a very positive relationship with Summit Foods over the years, and I think that a relationship with a vendor works best when we both benefit from having a good product, good quality delivered at a competitive price. And I believe that that's what this updated contract will do for us. As I noted in the amendment proposal, we're estimating it's gonna cost about $45,000 more out of our budget for food than we had previously looked at in the September 22 agreement. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Sheriff Heck?
Mr. Chair, so we did not have a full 2023 contract with these people.
In September of 2022, we did sign an amendment that, yes, we could hold their feet to the fire and say, well, you signed it, you're gonna provide this cost to us. My concern is that, they could say, well, all right, we're no longer your vendor. Or if they couldn't exit in 2023, I think they most certainly would in 2024.
That's a slippery slope to hold their feet to the fire
Oh.
in any contract, you know, but,
Right.
sometimes in some places, you know, if I do a contract for something, and I contracted milk and it goes down, they hold my feet to the fire. They don't say, oh, you know, you can't produce it for that kind of rate. So, I don't know. You know, a contract doesn't do you any good if you can't hold them to the fire, you know, hold it to them.
Commissioner Kapinski.
Mr. Chair, Sheriff, do we get any chance of recouping this money?
No.
It doesn't get billed to the inmates or anything like that?
No, we are responsible for feeding them. So this is the basic nutritional needs that every inmate has to be provided. The over and above things, the commissary, we do make revenue off of that.
So this, Mr. Chair, so this portion is included then in the people that we're housing outside of Benton County that are coming into the county? And what do we charge for that, for housing other inmates?
I believe our rate is $55 a day, and the cost of food is figured into that.
It is.
Yes.
So at any time, can we raise that?
Traditionally, we look at that at the end of the year for adjusting our fees. So I believe that, yes, that will be in order to look at once again at the end of this year.
Sheriff, would it be fair to say, I'm just trying to follow the numbers here, that you had expected a fairly large increase in the cost of food, that it really only affected our total budget of $45,000 versus the $295 that they're requesting? That's what I understood you to say, that it would hit our budget an additional $45,000, but is that
Correct.
because we're on a calendar year and they're not with our contract?
No, that the comparison here is what we were anticipating following the signing of the September 22 agreement that increased our costs 8% versus signing this agreement, which is gonna increase an additional now 13.4%.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, so, I mean, it's rough to look at, jail inmate costs for boarding because I think that there's a lot of opportunities out there for counties to board at different jails.
Yes, there is not a lot of demand out there right now
Right.
for boarding. Our populations are still relatively low. We have started to board for the state and one or two other counties, but that's a fairly insignificant number in our jail. I'd say on any given day, it's less than 10 inmates. So the bulk of the inmates that are in our jail, those 35 to 45 inmates, those are our inmates.
Any other questions, or what would you like to do with this contract proposal?
I'll move approval to update the contract for Summit Foods.
I'll reluctantly second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the Summit Foods contract update. Is there any other questions, comments, discussion?
I think we're stuck on it.
Yeah.
It is disappointing, you know, to go up 21%.
Well, it's disappointing that you can't hold them
Right.
to the contract.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Sheriff, annual report?
Thank you, Commissioners. I will attempt to be brief in going over the annual report. Each of you had the opportunity to look over it, so as I work my way through it, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or feel free to ask at the end. So after reviewing the metrics that we used to measure our performance over in the Sheriff's Office for 2022, it appears when we're comparing 2022 to 2021 that a number of those metrics showed a decrease. So a number of things that we use to measure, as I'll detail here, moved down. An exception to that would be the number of inmates in our jail, the number of texts to 911, and the number of cases assigned to our investigative division, all those showed a slight increase. I would like to point out that it's difficult to say, well, why are we seeing a slight decrease in the demand for some of our services? There's a lot of variables there, but I think that part of it has to do with the fact that this is the fifth straight year, 2022 is the fifth straight year that we've seen declining crime rates in Benton County. And again, I would love to stand up here and say that that's specifically just because of the work that my deputies and my jail staff and my dispatchers are doing. But I can't necessarily put my finger on that, but I'd like to say that we got something to do with it and that the public is acting on some of the crime prevention work we're doing. So I think those things are two key contributors to the fact that our crime rate continues to move down. As you're well aware, we continue to battle the shortage of qualified candidates out there. The labor pool is very shallow. We struggle mightily to fill positions in our jail, and we're beginning to run into struggles in filling positions in our licensed ranks as well. So we'll continue to work at that. Going into a little bit of detail, we'll start with our public safety answering point, our dispatch center, because that's where most people begin their interaction with our office. So in our PSAP, whenever a call comes in that requires the services of a public safety agency, we assign what's called an initial complaint report or an ICR to that. In 2022, our PSAP generated 26,623 ICRs. That was about 1,500 fewer than in 2021. Busiest time was between 1 and 7 p.m. Fridays are the busiest day, and Sunday is the least busy day. Summer is a busy time for us. May through August accounted for most of those ICRs. Our PSAP received just over 9,000 calls on our 911 lines. This was about 1,000 fewer than in 2021. And we handled 87 text to 911 sessions, and that's about 13 more than in 2021. So we're seeing that increase steadily and slowly. There were 41,653 incoming telephone calls in total coming into our PSAP in the year 2022, and that was just a little less than 4,000 fewer than in 2021. Moving on to our civil process and warrant division, these are the court papers and the warrants that we're obligated to serve and provide to the public. So we had 765 requests for civil process. That was about 120 fewer than in 2021. The top request was orders for protection and harassment restraining orders. That made up 204 of those 765 requests. We have a lot of those that come into our office and get served. The next 5 most common processes were subpoenas, summons and petitions, writs of recovery, orders show cause, and eviction summons. For the year, we had 1,447 arrest warrants. That was just 122 fewer than in 2021. Next, I'll move on to the patrol division and the work they've been doing. In 2022, of those ICRs that were assigned in the PSAP, of those 26,000 or so, 14,172 were assigned to units within the Benton County Sheriff's Office. That was about 1,000 fewer than in 2021. The number one single activity accounted for there is traffic stops. The next most common occurrences in those 14,000 ICRs were assistance to the public and other agencies, medical emergencies, towards zero death traffic detail activity, suspicious activity reports, and animal complaints. The 5 most commonly reported crimes in Benton County in 2022 is a familiar list: theft, fraud, harassment, domestic abuse, and assault. The majority of those calls for service happened between 1 and 5 p.m., with Fridays again being the busiest and Sundays being the least busy, with summer months, May through September, also showing the highest number of calls. Speaking of the crime rate, in 2021, the BCA made some changes to how they reported crimes. So instead of the annual book coming out, they now have an online system where you can go and get this crime information in real time or near real time. The ability to access it sooner or in more detail is nice. The one thing that I wish they hadn't changed is they course, whenever we change something, we have to change definitions. So we can no longer compare apples to apples because they've changed from Part 1 to Part 2 crimes to Group A and Group B crimes. So when they now give us the information, we're going to be a little handicapped comparing it historically. But when we look at the Group A crime rate in Benton County, as I mentioned, it's 47% lower than the statewide average. And the 2023 crime rate for Group A crimes, again, marks the 5th consecutive year of a declining crime rate in Benton County. In the 14,000 ICRs that were assigned to the Sheriff's Office, about 450 of those were 450 were records checks, about 630 were permits to carry a pistol, and 161 were permits to purchase a pistol. The numbers for permit to carry were down by 40%, and permit to purchase were down by 17% when compared to 2021 numbers. But I think it's important to note that those 2021 numbers were all-time record highs. So I'm not surprised that it went down a little bit. I think it will be interesting to see how the changes in the law are going to affect how specifically our permit to purchase numbers run now that all purchases need to have that permit. In our investigative division, we have three detectives, a civilian employee, and 2 full-time deputies assigned to VOTIF. This investigative division saw 156 cases assigned to it in 2022, and this is a 2% increase from 2021. Of those 156 cases, 135 of them were cleared, creating an exceptional clearance rate of 87%. So they're doing some excellent work in the investigative division, and we're very thankful for that. Our deputies assigned to the Violent Offender Task Force also continue to be busy. They're seeing a steady flow of controlled substances into the area. That has not abated. Methamphetamine continues to dominate the drug culture out there as the most commonly found controlled substance, with fentanyl creating a growing threat and a deadly threat at that. I would say that all these illegal controlled substances are a bad idea, but fentanyl is particularly bad. We're seeing people dying consistently or nearly dying because of this substance. There were 28 cases that the VOTIF investigators completed in Benton County. In those 28 cases, they utilized 12 search warrants, 7 felony level arrests, and seized 4 firearms, along with almost $22,000 in cash. Moving on to our jail division, we continue to see, as we discussed already, a lack of demand for boarding. However, that is beginning to slowly change. We're dealing with a very difficult and challenging jail population. As always, it seems that the mental health crisis out in the street just continues to filter into our jail, and there doesn't seem to be any solution on the horizon anytime soon. In 2022, there were times where nearly a quarter of the inmates held in our jail had either extreme mental illness or behavior problems that caused us to have a 2-officer contact note on them. So it was a very difficult time in 2022 when it comes to dealing with these inmates that just are very high needs, very high danger, and just difficult people to deal with. In 2022, we had an average daily population of 47.22 inmates. That's an increase of 5.64 compared to 2021. And we booked in a total of almost 1,600 inmates. That's about 56 more than in 2021. The length of stay decreased in 2022. It was 10.81 days when compared to 2021. Sentence to Serve program. We were able to get enough detention officers hired and get enough people to start a crew once again in 2022. In about half of a year in 2022, the STS crew worked on 30 projects in Benton County. That included projects for the county, Rice, Sauk Rapids, townships of Watab and Longola, and the Foley School District. 9 inmates performed work on the STS crew, working off 88 days of jail time and just over $3,000 in fines. We have a wonderful group of volunteers at our office, and we're very fortunate to have them. We have our Benton County Mounted Patrol, who are individuals who volunteer to assist us with horses at search and rescue and security events. In 2022, those members logged a total of 589 hours. We also have a dedicated group of individuals who serve as reserve deputies, assisting us where non-licensed reserves are appropriate, such as at the fair or at amnesty days. These reserve deputies provided a total of 627 hours of service in 2022. And we also have about 50 individuals who volunteered to do programs in the jail. Those 50 individuals volunteered 419 hours of programming work in the jail. In our public outreach efforts, we continue to have the DARE program operational. In 2022, there are 484 DARE students in 6 schools that were presented with the DARE curriculum. Our Police Activities League program was held in the summer of 2022 and is going on right now in the summer of 2023. That's always well attended, as well as our youth snowmobile and youth ATV courses. And finally, it wouldn't be an annual report if I didn't mention the fact that we are on social media, on Facebook and Twitter, and that we also provide weekly columns to our local papers on crime prevention efforts. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Sheriff. Any questions? As always, a very detailed report. Appreciate that.
Indeed.
It's interesting to see these numbers. It's actually amazing. Any questions for the sheriff? Thank you, Troy.
Thank you,
Have a
Commissioner.
great
you.
day. All right, we'll move on to our Auditor Treasurer, Christine Sherbing, for an office update. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. So I was just gonna update you a little bit of things going on in the office. The first half of tax collection was very successful. As of today, we have collected 55% of the property taxes. The mobile home tax statements will be mailed out on July 10th. The DMV, we have welcomed Nicole Leach and Allie Nyland in May as our new DMV office technicians. Having them now allows us to provide all services consistently throughout the day and the week. And with having them, it's allowing some of our other employees to research and provide EVRT services to more area dealerships. And then into the bank interest. Although keeping money local in area banks is important, I believe it's my due diligence to ensure the county is earning the most interest as possible, and some local banks cannot compare to the larger banks and money markets. Since taking office, I have researched and reinvested and negotiated with local banks. I have taken 20 million of the investments from as low as 1.5 or 0.15% to over 5.25%, increasing the earnings from monthly earnings from roughly 40,000 per month in interest to over 100,000 per month. And then the tax system is the other thing, and that will be updated more at the cow next week.
Awesome.
Any questions?
Thank you. Good, very good news.
Yeah, well, interest, everybody knows if you're paying or got money, interest rates have gone higher across the board.
Do you know, Christine, that the 55% of the property taxes collected at this point, is that pretty typical?
I've been
number?
told anything over 50% is.
Okay.
is
And you
average.
did touch base a little bit on being able to offer some more license stuff to local
Yes,
dealerships.
The
So are you seeing some
EVRT
coming back?
yes.
Great.
Working on it, which that process, we're still researching it. It's, if anybody knows, MnDrive is a difficult animal to work with, and so we're just looking into it, and it's a process that allows the dealership to provide tabs and plates to the buyer and then submit the paperwork to us for processing. So in offering that service, which now we'll have enough employees to offer that, it'll bring back some area dealerships, hopefully, so that we can process their paperwork.
And my last question before I get to Commissioner Pop is, now with your 2 new employees, are you considering yourselves fully staffed?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
great.
we're
Thank you.
fully
Commissioner
staffed
Pop.
How is the revenue in the DMV compared to other years?
It's pretty consistent so far, I've noticed.
Okay.
It hasn't, I think it's gone down a little bit more recently just because we haven't had enough employees, but now I just saw a person out in the parking lot this morning and he was waiting at the door and he said, "Oh, I seen on Facebook that you're now that you're fully staffed and you're gonna be able to get through people faster." So he was happy to hear that.
That brings up a good question, Commissioner Pop. Maybe next time we visit, you could have a revenue number for us.
Yeah,
Where
definitely.
we're
Yeah.
at, maybe through June 30th or something.
Sure.
Just some number.
Just on just the DMV, what the DMV
Right,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions for Christine?
No?
Thank you for the update. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much.
So we should have 60,000 more
Per month.
revenue per month.
Until it goes.
All right,
down.
we're gonna move on to
That'll be a
Roxanne
couple
Achman,
years.
Land
Yeah.
Services Director. Update and presentation from the National Grid Renewables from Geronimo Energy.
Yes. Okay, 1 second to pull up the presentation. Okay, so we've got Tom Karras here, and he is with National Grid Renewables, formerly, I believe formerly Geronimo, or was Geronimo purchased by? I'll let you explain. There's been some changeover on the names, so we've got Tom here to discuss that, and then to request the letter of support.
Okay, thank you, Roxanne. Morning, Tom.
I don't. It's not a PowerPoint. It's just a slideshow. Yeah.
To scroll down. Good morning, Chairman,
morning.
Commissioners.
morning.
I am Tom Karras. So, to answer that, Geronimo Energy was a long-standing renewable energy developer in Minnesota. 2.5 years ago, it was purchased by National Grid. National Grid flagship is that they pretty much own and control transmission and gas infrastructure in the United Kingdom, and then also have a very sizable footprint in the northeast of the United States, doing both those two things. So Geronimo is now National Grid Renewables. We operate under National Grid. We're still that farmer-oriented group, but we've got access to things that we never had access to before. A little background, what we have here today is in 2021, April 26, 2021, the Minnesota PUC granted Regal Solar a permit. That came after a couple years worth of design, letters of support, touching base with all local government, and getting to that PUC opportunity to be granted a permit. Now, they're not, the PUC is one of the big dogs in the room, and another one is MISO, Midwest Independent System Operator, the guys who control the grid. So we need a permit from the state, and then we also need a permit to be able to discharge energy onto the grid. In a real good world, those two things come together very nicely at about the same time. It's not a real world much anymore. And it comes back to some of the labor challenges that the sheriff was speaking to. So MISO has had a continuing backlog due to the fact that they are losing engineers pretty regularly, and the applications for new projects it's almost doubled in the last couple of years, which has meant to us that our opportunity, our getting our final GIA completed with them was delayed and delayed and delayed. We made a little lemonade out of those lemons right there, in that as 3 or 4 years in the solar business is not quite a lifetime, but it's a big chunk of time where technology changes. So what I've got to update you on is that you originally provided a letter of support for a 100 megawatt project. We are now able to put a 119.5 megawatt project within the same footprint by increasing, changing modules, some of the monitoring and inverter technology has gone up. We've been able to increase our output in this without changing the footprint of the project. It's works. I mean, nobody likes to lose time, but in this case, we did well with that. We have the opportunity that the PUC permit on this side allows us to just amend our regular permit if we don't exceed by more than 20%. Our 100 megawatt project could be up to 120 without having to do a full amendment process. The MISO folks over here has a leniency built in that also allowed us to get up to 120 megawatts. We're at 119. So at the end of the day, we are going up to this 119 megawatt project on the same footprint. It's about $170 million worth of infrastructure investment. Annual taxes coming in, Benton County is about $176,000 a year. Our township is at about $44,000 a year. It's important that when we were granted that initial state permit, they rule in that we were in full legal compliance, that the project would support future energy needs and reliability. There was no better alternatives. Our project provided significant environmental and social benefits. And they did appreciate the fact that we were building into our project the formation of an educational fund that we will be putting in about $24,000 a year during the life of the project into one of our school systems. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact detail on that yet, or I don't even know if they've got that negotiated, but that is, we are being held to that donation to the local schools. So we end up with about 150. It'll take about 18 months to build this. And let me go back and just see, are there any questions about the location? I believe 3 or so of the commissioners were not here during the original. So we're up here in District 2, Mr. Pop's district, working with Wally Parkins.
Correct.
And that's an education in itself. Wally's a pretty shrewd guy.
That's an understatement.
Well, we've earned his trust, and I say that. And then this is essentially, these are what you're seeing there are the trackers run north and I don't know if I'm right here.
Yep.
Run north and south, and they are the trackers that the sun starts coming up a little bit. They will notice it and they will tip to meet the sun, and then follow the sun as it goes over. At the end of the day, they'll return to the tabled position at night. Wait for that very dependable source to come up, in 10, 12 hours after that. It's been, Roxanne has been very helpful in answering some questions, getting this meeting established. I would like to ask for your continued support in the form of a letter of support that we would forward on to the Public Utilities Commission in recognition that this is the type of infrastructure you'd like in your county.
Tom, if I could have a quick question for you.
Sure.
You are correct, there are three of us that are new, and I'm one of them, so
Okay.
I just wanna, follow through with you on one of the numbers you threw out here, approximately $176,000 in production tax off of this site. Do you have, and I don't know that you have it in front of you now, but can you show us or send to us how that was calculated? And the reason I ask that is because we're looking at another site who's approximately the same size, and we hear the $500,000 mark, so it's significantly different. And so I'm trying to figure out where these numbers are coming from as an estimated production tax to the county. And so if that's something you don't have today, that's fine, and I understand that, but maybe that's something you could
Can I
get to us.
Oh, no, that's one of the things I appreciate about my company is that I've got experts that deal with that, that will, send that information through Roxanne.
Absolutely,
Okay?
that'd be great. Commissioner Kapinski.
Mr. Chair, quick question here. Do you know the difference, and this is kind of going off of Commissioner Johnson, but the difference between what it was at 100 versus what it is at 119 in taxes? Is it adding, 30,000 or 50,000?
The actual increase, that extra 19 megawatts,
Yep.
you're gonna, as you could say, it's 20% bigger, you're gonna get 20% more.
Okay.
And again, I'd love to deliver that information. But I think you're gonna see a greater gain because of the technologies, and I don't believe that we're gonna be using the bifacial panels on this project. But in the future, and that may be one of the things that's going to be coming up that you're going to see in some of the future projects, is a module that takes the sun's rays here, but also gets a little bit of reflective light coming from behind, which seems a little counterintuitive, but if you think about snow on the ground, you can get more generation out of the same capacity of the panels.
Okay.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Pop.
Tom, at the beginning of this project, I don't believe that they were having trackers in there. I thought they were more stationary panels when we went to all the meetings. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct, sir.
So that could, that would make some of the increase too. But, I'll give Geronimo or whoever was, I don't know if the same people, if any of the Geronimo people are still working for you guys or not.
Oh, yes, they're there. I've been with the company for about a year.
Okay.
So I'm coming in the midstream in this project.
They were really good at the public meetings that they had up in Rice and all that, so. And it was a long process.
Yeah, no, I'd be loved, part of I've been in the industry for about 15 years now, and part of my own personal gratification is that the fact that I can stand up and say that I represent the second lowest cost of energy out there, and that our efficiency, our ability to generate, as the industry has progressed, we're able to do more with the same amount at a cheaper price.
Any other questions, comments for Tom?
No.
Anything?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board, or the chair signs the letter of support for
Second.
Regal.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, for the board chair to sign the letter of support that they're requesting. Is there any other discussion? Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Tom.
I'll get that tax information to Roxanne by the end of the week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right, Roxanne, overview of cannabis legislation by the Benton County Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Aye.
Well, staff has been diligently working on thoroughly going through the legislation that was passed on cannabis. And so the county attorney's office has spent a great deal of time reviewing that and coming up with this presentation today to kind of bring everybody up to speed on what this legislation is and what it does. So I'll turn it over to Michelle and she can let you know.
Thank you.
Well, you can scroll or you can hit that. Okay. Do you want it up there?
Good morning.
Morning.
As Johanna already has mentioned, it was an extensive bill, 332 pages, so this is very high level. As we get working through the process in the next couple of years, we will go more in depth on some of the requirements and some of the controls that the county has. All right, just an overview of some of our definitions. We have adult use cannabis. We also have adult use flower. That is the product that is licensed by the Office of Cannabis Management, which is a new creation of this legislation. And anything other than that that isn't licensed will still remain illegal. So, just for your knowledge. Okay, as I mentioned before, Office of Cannabis Management will now be the regulatory authority of all cannabis products. And that will include what the Department of Health has been regulating for medical cannabis. So that eventually will transfer over to this new office. This office will be the regulatory authority. They will be the licensing authority. They will be establishing rules and regulations regarding all of these cannabis businesses. They will also be adopting rules down the road regarding, cultivation, limits on potency, those type of things. So more to come that will be occurring. There will also be additional research and studies occurring over the next couple of years. They will be required to continue to study and provide updated information. In addition to that, they are also establishing a Cannabis Advisory Council. This will include a lot of authorities, MDH, DPS, DEED, Human Rights. It will also include a representative from the League of Minnesota Cities, AMC, law enforcement, DCA. So it will be extensive and exhaustive of who will be giving recommendations and advice to the Office of Cannabis Management. All right, so what we have is, as I stated before, the state will be licensing all of these cannabis businesses. They will be in charge of revoking the licenses, handling all licensing appeals, and in general regulating the cannabis businesses. The one thing with the local control is we do not have the ability to prohibit the possession, use, or transport within reason, of cannabis. Also, cities and towns will be registering the businesses, and that will allow us some additional control, but we can't prohibit businesses in general in the county. So, cities and towns are the registering agent of any retail business. They can also suspend a registration. And they can adopt time, place, and manner restrictions and limit retailers. They can also adopt time limitations for retail sales and may adopt public use restrictions. The county can also do all of that, except they may not be able to be the registrar or have that suspension right. However, if the cities and towns consent to the county providing that registration, then we would have those abilities that the city and town does. And that would include suspension of registrations, adopting registration controls. Regardless of whether or not we have that registration right, we would still be able to adopt an interim ordinance to prevent any businesses establishing themselves in Benton County if we want to do a study, commission a study, or adopt manner, time, and place restrictions, which we can do regardless of whether or not we have the authority to register. The other piece is, like the city, we have the ability to adopt public place restrictions and use of cannabis product. Now, if the county doesn't adopt any ordinances, doesn't amend anything, it would still have certain rights and ability to influence who gets licensed. So once the state receives a license, it appears that they have to notify the county within 30 days of an application to seek out information whether or not that application would meet zoning requirements or provide input on the application. And that input could be regarding where it's located, other relevant concerns, or if you have public data regarding the applicant, you could also share that with them. Retail sales will be regulated. They will be kind of the same as liquor. And complaints, there will be an expedited complaint system put in place for local government units. So if a local government unit has concerns